This story is something that I think about from time to time and it creeps me out. So I'm writing this to get it off my chest. So anyways, let's begin. Almost 3 years ago, I was 17 at this point and was accustomed to being in horrible situations, as all I had was my mother and she did not hold down a job for long because she had her own issues to tackle. And so as I grew up, we stayed in and out of roommates' houses. We never really had our own place to stay except twice, but that didn't last long either, and we would be forced into a new environment with a snap of a finger. So when I was 17, we were led into a situation where we were going to be homeless again, and I was so used to it at this point as I had slept in the street more than I'd like. The day comes when we have to leave our roommate's house, and my mom is able to stay at her boyfriend's trailer. I had nowhere to go as I had no friends at this point, as I had halted my friendships because they were bad for my health and my mental state and were overall just toxic. My mom offered me to go with her, but I didn't want to, as I felt like getting between my mom and her boyfriend was kind of weird. Plus, I'm used to the street, and I didn't think it was that bad at that time. So, here we are, and I get dropped off at a McDonald's, and I eat some burgers before I go off into the streets once more. Eventually, the sun fled and darkness was all that remained, and so I looked for a place to sleep for the night. I went into many places that night trying to sleep, but none of them were working, because it was either too hot or the lights were too bright, or the mosquitoes were biting me. That's when I remember a house that I used to go into to chill in. This house was under construction and nearly finished, so the doors all shut and the windows were all settled so there were no mosquitoes. I go through the back like I always do and I make my way upstairs. Eventually, I settle in the bathroom because there is less debris on the floor. So I lay there and I try to sleep. Eventually, I hear some sounds downstairs, but I didn't think anything of it. I figured it was the door that I came through swinging open and closed or something. Eventually, after laying there for maybe an hour, I open up my phone and look at old photos of my life thinking about how I messed it up and that how I got to this point, and how I had lost everything. The noises were still happening this entire time, but I paid no mind to it. Eventually, for whatever reason, I get up and I go to sit down on the back porch because I couldn't get to sleep. I make my way downstairs and out the back door to the porch. I'm messing around on my phone for maybe 5 minutes when it happens. I see movement to my left from the back door that I just exited from. I glance over and time itself freezes. At first, I think that it's an illusion, but I was in fact wrong. I see a man shrouded in darkness peering past the wall inside to gaze at me. His lower half of his figure was behind the wall entirely, and I could not see anything but his upper body. The rest of his body is leaning to the left, peeking behind this wall, almost like the man was trying not to let me see his full body, as it would make his presence known. The man was a pure black silhouette, and I could not make out any features. After noticing him, I just sat there and stared at him for what seemed like forever, but it was probably a minute or two. I expected him to come outside and talk to me because I normally talk to a lot of homeless people, and I thought that the man was just homeless. He didn't come outside though. He had not moved at all, actually. He was as still as a statue and quiet as a mouse. Maybe if I had not noticed him, he would have stared at me the entire time. Eventually, after staring at him, I got up and got on my bicycle and made my way out of the property. As I'm walking out of the backyard, I peer into the window that is next to the door that I saw the man in. The moonlight revealed the man was still there, only now he was watching me walk off the property. I could tell because the moonlight revealed the top of the man's head, and I saw his left eye gazing at me. He was a white male who was very tall and had a jacket of some kind on. I couldn't make out many details because he was still cloaked in darkness. After seeing this, I just moved a little faster out of there. I got to the front of the house on the street and I looked inside to see if I could see him again, but I couldn't. I got on my bicycle and I waved goodbye to the house because I figured the man was still watching me. And then I drove away. For the rest of the night, I could not sleep. I tried 2 different spots, but both were no luck. This is where the story ends. I know I didn't have a crazy chase or fight to the death or anything, but this was real life and it's not the same as the movies or books. I don't know what the man was doing in there. I assume he was trying to sleep like I was, but the way that he was staring at me was very unnerving. It makes me wonder how long the man was in the house for and what would have happened if I had actually fallen asleep. Would he have stared at me while I was asleep, completely blinded to his presence? Or did he have other intentions? I will never know, but now I don't go into houses like that anymore at all after this experience. This happened around 2018, right after my sister moved out of our apartment together. It's been bothering me since I just moved out. I was home alone on my day off when somebody knocked on my door. No one ever visits and I have anxiety, so that was terrifying to me already. I answered and it was a woman who lived in one of the basement apartments. She seemed nice at first, asking if I wanted any clothes that she was giving away because they weren't her style, but supposedly matched mine perfectly as a young woman. That was already a red flag in my mind because the only time that I ever saw her was when I was walking to work, wearing my uniform of a black shirt, black pants, and a black hat. But I let her talk because I'm super awkward, and I hated being rude to technical strangers. But then she started getting pushy and listing off super expensive name brands to try to get me to go to her apartment. It's an old small building with no cameras and I live on the top floor, which would be down what I call the creepy stairs and next to the door to the back lot that nobody ever used. And then I realized she was holding a notebook open with a script of what to say. I continued to reject, but my anxiety wouldn't let me close the door on her face without fear of her lashing out. She kept insisting until I finally told her that my boyfriend was going to be home soon and suggested that she donated them. My boyfriend wasn't going to be home for many hours, but she didn't need to know that, obviously. So she leaves and I go back to my room, which has a window facing that back lot/alleyway. A few moments later, I hear a fight happening in the lot, and I see her with the previous, he was already fired at that point, maintenance man. It's a loud, screaming fight, and they're standing next to his truck, which has tinted windows and a covered truck bed. My paranoia went a little wild, so I texted my family about it just to feel a bit safer. And then I believed that he left. But a little while later, something hit my door pretty hard. I didn't check, just stared. And then it happened again and again, all night until my boyfriend came home, and for a few days when I was alone. I found out after looking at the door that they were hitting my deadbolt and it was off-center. Even after it was replaced, the damage could not be fixed. It stopped after a little while and the woman moved out almost immediately after all that. I don't want to feed my paranoia, but something obviously was not right. I know that I should have called the police, but I have horrific phone anxiety too. Everybody thought that I was overreacting, and police in my town are relatively useless. Also, that maintenance man was rehired and was the one who replaced my deadbolt, insisting he kept the extra key despite never needing the old one. My new house is much safer, thankfully,